Welcome to the Pinkhurst Podcast, a real and whimsical look at what it means to be fully alive with all the joy and chaos and pressure and vulnerability and beauty. Take the ride along with unexpected guests and be inspired to fall in love with your own unique destiny and meaning. In this episode, Zachary Murdock and our guest, Jodi Strock, give you the tools to make it through the labyrinth and learn what all that laughter is aimed at on the other side, the other side, the other side, the other side.
Your blood is paint, art in motion. Do not let the zoo frame break your invisible beast. Even inside, love beyond. Stretch out, legs, wings, ideas. Be blind, tipsy in the dawn, with dew in your hair, turning dust to mud. Portraits of elephants trampling gates. This episode is sponsored by Think For You, a new gizmo by a sister company of an AI warfare conglomerate that we are legally not allowed to identify, which relieves you of the burden of having to use your noggin. Tired of having to shell out bucks for Advil due to headaches from holding paradoxical concepts? Try Think For You, and they will do the rest. I didn't feel like writing an ad today, so I used Think For You, and they, promoted themselves? Isn't that a conflict of interest? Forget about it. Don't think too hard. We got it handled.
There's no way you're not looking if you're listening to this podcast. Looking for something, for some song, some spark. By chance, you found us. So why not allow chance to guide and illuminate your path? Roll the dice that come along with your copy of God Help Me I'm Awake, Volume 1, Wisdom Quotes for Daily Awakening. To laugh and be inspired, go to godhelpmeimawake.com. Again, that is godhelpmeimawake.com, godhelpmeimawake.com.
Our guest today is Jodi Strock, psychotherapist, yogi, and mindfulness teacher. Welcome to the Pinkhurst Podcast.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
So to begin, I've been rolling the dice. We just created a new book called God Help Me I'm Awake, Smoke Signals for Lucid Dreamers. As the horn honks behind me, saying hello, emphasizing its excitement for our new book. I curated quotes with a dear friend of mine, Ruth Strasberg, and it's interspersed with fairy tales. Growing up in New York, I discovered that the outcome of rolling 3 dice, which is a game we would play in New York called CeeLo, there's 216 potential outcomes. So it's a little oracle, and I'm going to roll the dice to see what wants to come through as we begin this adventure together. So we got 1, 3, 6. Let's see what's coming through. 1, 3, 6. Rumi. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. That's perfect. On the last episode we did with Kim Kranz, if you're familiar with Kim Kranz, she's wonderful, the Wild Unknown Tarot deck. I mentioned that quote because it always echoes in my mind. So it's kind of like the poem in the beginning, don't go back to sleep, the dew in our hair. To begin, you and I spoke a little bit about your practice, and you mentioned the bridge between a spiritual practice, maybe a more traditional one, that maybe Siddhartha was one of the ways that you stumbled upon your practice, but then also having a more living sentient practice as well that's ever evolving. And I love that balance, and I think it's one of the keys to all practices and just a kind of way to live, how we can hold tradition and also leave room for our own experience. If you don't mind speaking a bit about that dance.
Well, it's fascinating. Like, to me, you mentioned Siddhartha, and
Mm,
as we spoke just before we started recording, that in many ways was my entry to the path of Buddhism,
mm,
my spiritual one of my spiritual practices.
mm,
And even before that, I think, and to speak to your question,
mm,
for me, and I think for any sentient being,
mm,
just simply being alive and a child, it there's this way in which we know before the mind comes online that nothing is separate.
mm,
You know, I now being a mother and raising my children, and I know you have a little one,
mm,
right? Just the magic of watching them, and there's something about how they mirror back to us
mm,
this place that we intimately know,
mm,
really. And my experience is that what and I really think that there's so many spiritual practices that support this and can
mm,
support this, but also very much can go another way. But for
mm,
me, what draws me to spiritual practice is that it was this bridge of speaking this language that I was forced to learn to live in the
mm,
world as it is now. It like wrapped words around something and
mm,
gave a structure
mm,
that um, felt like little stepping stones. And I didn't realize at the time, it's like the stepping stones provided this, it provided this way of meeting the world as it was and as I was.
mm,
And I really didn't realize until many years, many decades later, of, oh, it's actually leading me right back. It's
mm,
leading me back to this place. And so I don't know that it's separate, this place of meeting the unfolding of the world and having a spiritual practice. To me, it's one and the same, but it's just, in my experience, kind of where my intellect was ready to be at the time. And
mm,
then really where I am in my practice now is this surrender
mm.
um, and curiosity of what it really means to live and letting go of the intellect and really trusting the felt experience.
Mm. You're reminding me of a few things, one of which I believe T.S. Eliot said, to end where you begin and to know it for the first time.
I think that hits the nail right on the head.
And that also reminds me of my understanding of Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha tale, which is obviously his version of an ancient story. In it, Siddhartha, as you know, was raised in a bubble of his father wanting to basically shelter him from a spiritual life because there had been a prophecy from some wise so-and-so that his son would either grow up to become a great king or a great spiritual teacher. And his father wanted him to be the former, a king. And so he goes to these extreme lengths to shelter Siddhartha from death, sickness, poverty, everything, until he's 18 or something like that. And he goes on that little tour of the town. And although the king's people are rushing ahead to try to, cosmetically arrange reality to not appear as it is, I forgot the order, but there's a sequence of 3 instances where it's maybe a beggar is first, and it's so shocking to Siddhartha's psyche, who has been raised in this bubble, that it penetrates much more deeply than it would have if it had been naturally integrated, like most of us have these, experiences where death or sickness starts to slowly penetrate this innocence, if you will. And then from poverty, it's sickness, and then finally a corpse. And so that's what's in my understanding. And in that tale, sends Siddhartha off on this journey. Siddhartha goes to all the different schools that you can find, from the extreme, I forgot what they're called, but I guess aesthetics in the woods who are starving themselves. And basically Siddhartha masters every tradition that he can find. Like, he kind of surpasses his teachers, but then there's still this ache that is not satiated. So he keeps moving on to the next. And I think it's Govinda, right? His right-hand homie who travels with Siddhartha. I believe that's his name, Govinda.
I think that's right.
And so they eventually come to a Buddha. They meet a real Buddha, because Buddha was not the only Buddha, I guess, is how I understand it. An enlightened one. Mm-hmm. And so they go, and then Siddhartha recognizes in the presence that this person is truly enlightened. It's emanating. And so the next day, Govinda's like, all right, we found our spot. And Siddhartha says, actually, I'm going to leave now, but you should stay. And when he talks to the teacher, the enlightened one, who asks, why are you leaving? Siddhartha says, I sense you are truly enlightened, but it's not in your words. It's in your being. It's emanating. So for me to also become enlightened in my way, it wouldn't work to just stay here listening to your words. I have to go find it for myself. So I've always loved that story. And then, like the prodigal son, to some extent, Siddhartha, ironically, if I'm remembering it correctly, goes on to live a pretty debaucherous life after that, after having mastered all, and like has a family. And I don't know what happened, if he gets divorced or whatever the terms would be back then, but it's not like he went on to have a holy life at first, and it was that surrender into the worldliness. And there's even that whole part toward the end with the woman who's kind of like a divine prostitute, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they have this whole thing. Anyway, I don't mean to go on and do a cliff notes of the Siddhartha book, but just to your point, it's coming up now that's a fascinating telling of the spiritual journey. And in the end, I always imagine Siddhartha, when he does become enlightened, like an astronaut who's out of time and space, he gets this perspective of the harmony of the entire world. Whereas when we're so in it, the screaming, the love, the joy, it can feel so chaotic, but from a distance, you hear the perfection of the whole.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, just thinking about that.
No, I appreciated the cliff notes. It's been a while since I picked up the book, even though I know the story well. And I remember actually when my children were little, that was their favorite bedtime story that I would tell them. And what really would draw them in was this relationship between parents wanting to create this perfect, protected world and a child's curiosity to experience the world as it is. And that, that was really, I remember they'd really want me to lean into that part of the story. And they had a lot of questions about it. And that's beginner's mind, right? Like, and the sweetness of it. And to me, the like real time, this world that we're living in, there's that how hard we are as a culture working to create this illusion of a perfect world. And this idea that something I've been playing with and really been humbled by in the past month with some things my family's experienced is looking right in the eyes of this part of me that I think was, it's in my mind. I knew, let me start there. In my mind, I knew, right, that anything can happen to anyone at any time. Right. But then there's the experience of something happening. And it is this confronting experience of no matter how many years I've done a particular practice, no matter how much, yoga I've done, no matter what healthy foods I've put in my body, no matter what city we've chosen to live in or school system we've chosen for our children, none of it matters. None of it matters And there's nothing that we can do that is going to be a divine protection from life happening. And so what does it mean to meet life exactly as it is and let go of this illusion of control and this delusion of perfectionism and meet, it's like where the rubber meets the road. Is that the saying? Like,
Yes.
it's that place of just here it is. And what is it to hold my child or children and know that my arms want to protect them always and forever and won't and can't? What is it to hold my partner with us both shaking and crying and know that we're both falling apart, and what we're being held by in that moment has nothing to do with either one of our capacities, but by something much bigger that's holding all of us at all the time. And we actually leave it, and it doesn't leave us. So that's the place. And this Siddhartha story, I think, is really relevant. And I think that's why I liked it as a teenager when I was 14, is that even though it was about this dude from so many, hundreds of thousands of years ago, there was something about being drawn to the question of suffering and curious about, well, how do we meet it in a way that lets us still feel the liberation, even when life is still happening and pain's still going to be there. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'm just noticing this, and this is never, I'm not traditionally someone who sees things in my imagination at all. I'm much more of a word guy, but I often close my eyes to refocus and listen, because I think it's because I'm so sensitive socially that I can get tangled looking at someone looking at me. How am I, so it helps me to close my eyes. And every time I've done it, I see an outline of your silhouette as this kind of lit up person. And I think that's really interesting. And then when I look at you on the screen, I keep seeing this flicker of like a light thing around your, and then my logic says, oh, it's probably the retinal burn of screens, but I don't think it is. So I just wanted to say that I think I can sense again, it sounds like all the Western spiritual shit sounds crazy, but I never say that, or it sounds kind of corny to my New Yorker side, but it's happening. So I wanted to mention that. And in that imaginal reality, just that image is making me sense how we both are these glowing somethings in the midst of something. And it's really cool. But back to your beautiful descriptions of that line between the cerebral attempt to grok, and I love the word grok as in something that Molly put me onto, that difference between to know and to grok, like something in your body as opposed to your head. And I too have been studying since a young age spirituality in the form of Siddhartha to Rumi to whoever. But like you said, when it hits you, there's nothing you can do, nor should you, I guess. And that's probably why a lot of traditions I forget the name of that. You probably know. But when they stay in a cell with a dead body for like 6 months or a year to watch it decompose.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And I also don't know the term.
But people go to great lengths to try to penetrate the malaise of our minds that are living in a hypothetical, like, it's never going to happen to us, even if we know it is, but it's, and I think of Rumi saying, if sorrow comes to visit, do not turn sorrow away, for God has placed a pearl in sorrow's hand. So just really beautiful to partake in this mystery. And I appreciate your words and your showing upness in all. I think I'm going to roll the dice again, actually, because I like doing that sometimes, inviting the ancestors. 145. Let's see. Love is the ultimate outlaw, Tom Robbins. Never to be confused with Tony Robbins, God damn it. There's some movie I've mentioned. I think it's with Brad Pitt and one of those, kind of Ocean's 11-y wonderful vibes that him and Clooney and them would tap into. But in the film, they're all very much against their ex-general, or so they hate this guy. And so every time someone mentions his name, they all spit, no matter where they are. They'll spit indoors. And every time someone mentions Tony Robbins, it's kind of like that for me. I got to spit. Shout out to Tom Robbins, rest in peace. So I've been studying at Pacifica, as I think I told you. I just started a master's program where Molly went. And one of my new courses is on archetypes, which is a big word. And it's fascinating and confusing and wonderful. And it reminds me of kind of the mysterious source of all form and idea. And by definition, it defies definition. They like to say an archetype, when you're talking about archetypes that have not manifested into a form, it's an archetype per se, because you can't, it's like we're aware because we're so in it. Fish don't talk about water. Right. Humans don't talk about archetypes unless they're at Pacifica. Obviously, I'm joking, but that idea, but it's almost, like who dat, who say who dat when I say who dat. That's like archetypes. But I was reading a book called Archetypal Reflections this morning by Kieran LeGrace. I may be saying that name wrong. And a passage jumped out. Knowing we had our episode today, I thought of us, and I wanted to read it and see if anything comes through for you. It's kind of in relation to the manicuring of reality that we try to do, which of course leads to more horror, if you will, or whatever you want to call it. Everything is subjective, or we're defining everything from a subjective standpoint. So Is That So is another great story. You might be familiar with that old man whose son breaks his leg, and then this, and the villagers are like, oh, it's great news, that's bad news. And each time he says, is that so? And so that, but this person, Chiron, says the overarching strategy towards working with the shadow and the unconscious in general is that one should attempt to make it conscious. We don't need to stop our judgment or repugnant behavior or traits in other people. We couldn't really stop the judgment arising even if we wanted to. The judgment is based on a feeling reaction and is therefore an inherent psychological function, liking or disliking, approving or disapproving. Psychological wholeness embraces negative, quote, unquote, negative, or air quote, or whatever you say, traits too, and to arrive at this condition through individuation requires the ability to say yes to whatever happens, which includes our own reactions. So saying yes to whatever happens, that seems to be in line with what you were talking about before.
Yes.
Which connects to the child's mind, which, the monster is only the monster if you call it a monster. Or it becomes a monster when or the criminal who's looked at like a criminal instinctually acts like a criminal to some extent. I don't know. But I was just thinking about that this morning, and whatever form the archetypes take, just making them conscious and not, if anything comes up for you around all of that.
Very much. Just in what you were saying, the archetype takes whatever form it takes. You're reminding me of parts of self-work, right? And when we say like the criminal becomes the criminal because that's how it's seen, I think there's so much power in like reclaiming a practice of nuance, right? And the permission to not see ourselves as a set thing. I think, I remember growing up and like the generation that I'm of, that a popular question was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, who are you? Like, what, like, being a leader was a really big thing in the generation I was raised in. And there was very specific ideas, leaders were outgoing, they were talkative, they were extroverts. And there was, for me personally, so much self-abandonment that I had to experience, because that, I am introverted. I love being around people, but I recharge from going in. And yet, if you would have asked me the first 20 years of my life, I would have told you I was an extrovert, and I had all of the teachers to, with their stamp of approval to prove it. And there was so much freedom that came in these practices of being able to see a bigger picture. And through that, it was really like, I guess you can call it self-compassion practice. But it started with just a permission to turn toward shadow, and not just turn toward shadow for awareness sake, because I did that for a long time too. And it kind of led me to double down on self-aggression, and then it was like, well, I have to turn toward shadow so I can overcome shadow. So then ... Right. And it was always about the next moment. And I've seen in the work I do with others, and, really coming from my teachers and the work that I was fortunate to, stumble into and be guided through, that it's turning towards shadow, but with tenderness and curiosity and compassion. And that when judgment arises, it's not that judgment's good or bad or right or wrong, but often it's getting in the way of our human curiosity. And so to see the judgment and say, yes, and what am I also curious about here? And that then opens up this space, and through what we can see then in the mirror of our own experience. My experience has been that, when I look at someone who would be easy to label as a criminal, or even somebody that's created harm directly to myself or a loved one, I can't just see them as that act. I can't, because I am not able to see my own version of a misstep as just that act. There's a way in which, yes, that is a boundary that was crossed, and this is a part of that person, and also they are someone's child. And also they've had these other experiences. There's a whole being here, and that whole being, it goes back to what we've said before, that exists in everything. Right. I don't know. So that's what it started.
I love it. I love it. A lot of things come up. I have a friend who is a renowned therapist, and they told me once that they had this dream. I think they were graduating from school. And in the dream, it was a recurring dream over 6 months, where they were being chased by this shadow figure and up this flight of stairs, and they would wake up. And so one version of the dream, they made it through the door at the top of the stairs into a lit room where all of these people were applauding. And at first he thought they were applauding him, but when he turned, he saw the shadow, and the shadow took a bow, and they were applauding the shadow. And that always stuck with me. It makes me think of that. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I and I also just like that, my dad was once driving with me from a show I had done, and on the highway, there was this big billboard that said, "Hate has no home here," which sounds great. I mean, in theory, that's really nice. But my dad's a trickster, and he looked at me, he's like, "Well, where the fuck is hate supposed to go?"
Love it. Yeah.
And across from Cafe Gratitude, my dad always wanted to, he was joking, make a restaurant. I forgot what he was going to call it, but it was basically like the opposite of it was like the hamburger that said, "I fucking hate my life." And, it's just like complete. And, or the idea that, also my dad is a wonderful pain in the ass, and I mean that in a respectful way, but in this kind of nuance. And I can't help, as a word trickster also, every time someone says nuance now, which I love that word, I think nuance, same uncles. Which should be, we could call the episode nuance, same uncles if we wanted to. But anyway, which is also kind of makes sense for kind of the anima animus, like the anima side being able to flow, and the same uncles are just like, you need to be a leader, son. You need to, you know.
Yes.
And when both sides are healthy inside of all of us, obviously there's that, you know, the iteration of. But I'm losing my point. My point was, my dad met some guy who was I actually introduced him, who's a huge fan of this film my dad had made. And so it's a big deal for him to meet my dad. And so he's trying to brag to my dad about a friend of his who does all of this work around the world, helping people, helping tribes, helping suffering people, bringing water, all this stuff. And he's like, man, isn't he a great guy? Because my dad's movie had been about stopping nuclear war, or like a fairy tale. And my dad, being the guy he is, he says, well, I hope your friend has a little altar or shrine that he basically pays homage to all the people who go around fucking the world up, because without them, he wouldn't have a job. And so it's, you know, what are we doing here? I don't know. People online, I saw someone today, I should probably, I won't say specifics because it doesn't matter, but healers who are just being aggressive with certain information they might find to kind of unconsciously or consciously shame and try to sell things. So I love the work that you and Molly do. I don't know specifically your work per se, other than Molly having worked with you and how much respect she has for you. And I can only imagine, based off how she approaches her work, that there must be some kindred perspectives that we're not here to fix. And as therapists, I doubt that you guys are thinking of it like that. To me, it's more, in my way, is how can I activate the innate creative being that already is always okay, already knows, like you said before, the pre-verbal, you know, childlike knowingness. And it's just, as James Hillman would talk about, who I'm learning, you know, the idea of animism and anima mundi, soul of the world, and that the original organ of perception was the heart. And that was known. And I've known that. And I've met, whether it's like a kind of Rasta-ish guy in Harlem where I lived, from I think he was from the Caribbean. I don't remember where he was from, but he would always tell me, man, we're upside down. The heart is your first mind. He would say that to me. And then James Hillman is saying that to me through these texts. And the Greek Stoics are saying that to us through these texts. And then to me, it just makes me think, like, life is not a problem to be figured out, you know? And so it's funny. It's a paradox, nuance, same uncles, etc. But back to my little, I meant to mention too, maybe I said it, pin the tail on the archetype. That's a funny idea to me. Make your own Bible is something that Emerson said, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, make your own Bible, select and collect all the words and sentences that in all your readings have been to you like the blast of a trumpet. And I thought it would be funny to do a make your own Bible workshop. And then Molly said, that's probably offensive. And I said, I know, that's kind of the point. But I feel like that's also the theme of the Trampling Gates and make your own Bible. And I named a new book, Wet Cement Tombstones. And just this tendency we have that perpetuates itself in this culture in particular, which I think is crumbling in a good way, cracking, but to atrophy, right? Even companies that have this kind of dynasty mentality and they want to just grow and grow and the children will inherit. It almost feels stifling sometimes, I think, for the children. Like, what if companies had a ticking time bomb set up in their in their contracts that in 100 years the company will explode and the funds will, that would be really beautiful and more in accordance with nature, perhaps. I don't know. It's so tricky. And that's why I made this book, and we're working on many versions, one called God Help Me, I'm a Parent, where Galu the rooster has a chick. And you also made me think of Khalil Gibran's poem, which I'm sure you're familiar with, about the children are not your children, you know, and you're the bow, and that God loves the arrow as much as the stable bow. Yeah. But how do you, with yourself, with your clients, with your children, with the child in you that is mirrored by your children, what are some of the ways that you prevent that cryogenic atrophy tendency that is so strong, the sleep, if you will, the amnesia, which can go in any direction, whether it's sad, you know, not sadness, but like lethargy, you know, it can be the Eeyore side of us that's atrophying us into negative non-action or paralysis. It can be the excited maybe part that's, you know, feels like, oh, I'm onto something great. Now I have to perpetuate that. What are some of your tricks to plant dynamite in yourself to stay healthy?
Oh boy. Big question.
I know.
You know, I'm going to trust what first bubbled up when you asked. And that's that, I don't know that I have a trick, and I don't know that I try to stop it. Like, I think what I've learned, and it's definitely a muscle that it's been relearned, or maybe I should say I had to unlearn the other way of doing it. Yeah. Not sure which way. But coming back to curiosity, like, you know, I'm trying really hard in a culture that teaches us that the mind and the intellect is at the top of the hierarchy. You know, I'm really, in every moment I can remember, trying to come home to the body. And so when lethargy is present, for example, I try to really slow down and allow it so that I can information gather and see, is this lethargy because there's inaction here? And is inaction what it's the season for? You know, we had planned to record this a few weeks ago, and that was when some things unfolded that I needed to take a pause. And thank you for your patience.
Of course.
But that was a moment where it would have been really easy from the mind of conditioning to say, I'm not taking action right now. I am being lethargic. I need to get so much done. Why am I doing nothing? And when I really listened, the feedback I got was, nothing is exactly where you need to be right now. This is not the time for action. Whereas in another moment, it may be that when I slow down and inquire, oh, this is a really familiar pattern. Fear is here. And this is like where I might choose to play it small, because taking this step feels really scary. So it's a willingness to inquire moment by moment. And then from doing that practice, personally, it then just becomes more organic to offer it, you know, for example, to my children or clients or friends or whatever. It's not something that, I think initially when I learned about inquiry, it was something that I worked really hard to become good at and do. But I learned really quickly that way of doing it was not sustainable. And that it really is. I remember there was a story on retreat a few years ago, and there was a labyrinth, and, you know, the way the labyrinth practice was explained is that you ask a question before you step into the labyrinth, and you follow the labyrinth, which there's only one way in and one way out. And so you can't get lost. It's not like a maze. And when you get to the center, you release the question, and then you just see what comes to you. And I kind of was going in similar to you. I'm from New Jersey. So there's a part of me that's deeply immersed in like spiritual practice and trusting, like the messages that come through from the invisible realm. And there's another part that is like very conditioned to just kind of like look at it with side eye and a little bit of like, is this weird?
So you're like Dr. Melfi and Tony Soprano in one body.
You got it. Yes. Which, by the way, when I watch The Sopranos, I cry because it makes me homesick.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Powerful show. One of my favorites. It's very intense though. Now, anyway,
yes.
Neither here nor there. Yes. But so you're walking the labyrinth with the New Jersey and the other side.
Yes. And I walk in and I really was setting forth the question, you know, how can I, like, what am I here in this lifetime to like, what is my purpose? How can I most be of service? And it was like something that had ached me for a lifetime of like, I really want to know my path. And I like walked out of the labyrinth and, you know, I was like, well, I guess it didn't work, you know, and I was like walking down the hill back to my little cabin. And all of a sudden this wave of like this laughter, like kind of not my laughter, but it was like kind of like in my head, like this laughter. And it said, the moment will show you, stop trying so hard. Like there in every moment, there is an opportunity to be of service. Just relax and receive what the moment is showing you. And to me, that was so profound. And it shifted my experience with inquiry because there was a letting go of I, Jodi, have to be good at inquiry to, oh, I can just meet the moment with curiosity that is inquiry. And I is not really even me. It's just showing up as a human being to life. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Definitely. I forgot what my question even was. It doesn't matter. That was beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I think there's, oh man, there's just so many ways in every moment. And there was something in that book I was reading before about, it's, you know, this author is talking about the different types of archetypes as far as it's understood, from persona to shadow to anima. And they were talking about how the shadow is kind of like a birth canal through, and the same parallel in the Bible. Apparently, they say, you know, the entrance to heaven is very narrow, like a small birth canal, whereas like the road to the easier way out, or the, you know, distraction, all the is wide open. It's huge. It's because it's hard. Self-knowledge is hard, and so you go through the shadow. It's like a breach of the ego. It's this like barrier. And then the anima, again, this is all just heady words to describe, but it resonates. The anima, with all of its qualities, is kind of the guide through the underworld once you've encountered and passed through the shadow. And all of this is leading to the self with a capital S and the individuation. But yeah, I think part of that, as they said, is making the instincts conscious, like the difference between succumbing constantly to certain instincts, or the difference between emotion and feeling. Emotion, in their understanding or their perspective, is more primal, which doesn't make it bad at all. Like obviously you want emotionally charged, passionate things in your life, but just noticing when a strong emotion comes up, how that might be more, again, as an example of the types of parts of ourselves and where it's coming from, as opposed to a feeling. It sounds, in their words, more conscious or more delicate or more collaborative, perhaps. But yeah, that's a very interesting part of it for me. And it's always seemed to me that it has to be appealing to the children, to yourself. Like, why am I doing this? I can't shame myself or good boy myself into doing, you know, that doesn't last. So it has to, for me, become this joyful, wanting, longing, fulfilled, you know, enriching, powerful. What are the attributes that I see in Hermann Hesse in certain authors, writers, you, Molly, the people I respect, it's not about something physical really necessarily. You know, it's not about the material prowess or any of these things. It's this mysterious, yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Things of that nature.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm in a floaty zone. You know, do you know the joke about Buddhism? Buddha visits his mom and loses his shit. Do you ever
I
hear
don't
that?
know that, but I know that if you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family.
Yeah, exactly. It's another version of that. It's another version of that. What's your experience with that kind of dance, or if anything, you know, just the messiness of being human? The woman who curated quotes with me for this, Ruth, one of her quotes in here says, maybe enlightenment is simply the willingness to be fully human.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Me
But
too.
yeah, the part of you that has the Buddha, the Buddhist, the Buddha awareness, and then also the room for the Buddha part that loses their shit.
Mm-hmm.
What's that dance?
I mean, so it can be said, like, I think, you know, Buddha nature is in all of us, and so is our humanity, like our human nature. And so I think just being alive encompasses it. But man, like, I think that it's been learning to appreciate repair. Like that's been so important, because the more I find in my relationships, and this is true, I think, for human beings in general, the more attached, the more conflict seems to exist in that relational field, or the potential for conflict. So, you know, it's like I'm talking to you and my voice is like, I can tell, like, I feel really grounded and centered in my energy, and we're having this conversation. And just for the sake of like bursting the bubble of like Instagram perfectionism, like, this is a very specific moment we're in together. And, you know, outside of this moment this afternoon, my son's going to come home from school. My daughter has had the flu for the past 3 days. And, you know, my partner's had a really busy work day. And and I have things going on. So all of this is also happening, which can often lead to, when we're tired and haven't slept well and people aren't feeling well, these human moments, which can be arguments, can be being short, right? Can be making assumption of, man, I thought you were going to wash the dishes because I cooked, and what kind of message are you secretly trying to send me that you're just leaving them all piled up here, right? Like,
100%.
And so, like, I want to honor that that's not outside of this practice, or that doesn't go away with almost 3 decades of these practices. What it does offer is sometimes a pause, but every time an invitation, like when the pause doesn't happen, for example, or does, and then we go for it anyway, like, repair. And that's humility, I think. Like, for me, it's the humility, like the moment when I want to shrink really small and just kind of like scooch past the moment because it's really uncomfortable. That's the moment where I've learned it's like a mindfulness bell of, ooh, there's some personal responsibility to take here, and there's repair to be had. And that feels like it's medicine in a relationship, because that builds trust.
So beautiful.
So that's my experience.
I love that. It makes me think of the tearing of muscles when you're getting stronger. That's how you get strong, is the muscle have micro tears.
Yeah.
And then it also makes me think of all these cliches, like the generations we grew up in and prior, of that old advice people give: never go to sleep. What's the secret to a happy marriage? Never go to sleep mad. I'm like, man, no, that's wrong. If you're mad, go to sleep and then repair in the morning.
Yes.
Sleep it off, dude. Don't try. Because, I mean, it's just, anyway, we all have our own ways. So I'm not trying to turn around and give that advice per se. But yeah, I love that. I love the repair. I love the container that we can create through an expansion of cosmology, of zooming out like Siddhartha to see what's that old thing that's on many people's walls? We are of the nature to get sick, age, and die. You know, that kind of reminder that we're, what is it? The five
remembrances.
Yeah. Which are?
It's, I am of the nature to get sick. I have not gone beyond illness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. All people and all things that I love, I will one day be separated from. I cannot escape impermanence. And the only true belongings we have in this life are our actions. I cannot escape the consequences.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's the other, I remember one time someone I love was reminding me of that prayer. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. So that whole thing. And then there was a part of me also, which I'm just curious about because it's part of my nature of experimentation, that was like, you know what? Nah, I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. Like, I am sorry. Of course, I'm sorry, moment to moment. But that guilt of like, I don't know, it's just, and again, that's just my interpretation, but like how biblical things can slip into this like born sinner. There's this, it can be very sticky in that, if that makes any sense. Like, of course, I'm sorry for moments where I hurt you. I didn't mean to hurt you, or I acted it, like you said, the repair. But this overarching sorry for being human, no, I'm not sorry. You know?
Yeah. I mean, what I hear you saying is, of course, I don't want to cause harm to you, and I'm sorry for the impact, and I'm not ashamed.
Yeah.
Right? Like this belongs to,
Exactly.
right? It's a both and.
Exactly. And yeah, it's such a fun, and I'm also thinking about my neighbor Tom in this little beautiful neighborhood we live, who I project on him that he's an angel. And he's amazing, and he always takes his cap off when he speaks to people. He's like old school, but he is I love this great posture. Always, address Juju, our dog, Rock. How you doing, Rock? Literally, this guy is. I love this guy, and we were having our little philosophical chat, and I'm obviously the only, head to toe tattooed, paint my nails sometimes, trippy looking dude in the neighborhood here, for the most part, I think. And so we have anyway, I bring a spice perhaps that's not traditional, is what my point is. And Tom and I have these beautiful talks, and he reminded me of this quote. I think I've heard it. It's very familiar, but it's very powerful to me. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. Weak people create bad times. Bad times create strong people. Strong people create good times. Good times create weak people. Weak people create bad times. And just that, again, the cycles that we get to notice in the repair, in the dance, whether it's micro, macro, throughout time, in order to perhaps zoom out, like our friend Siddhartha. And Hess went on to write Steppenwolf, which Molly read a bunch of these. Obviously, it's through the lens of a white man.
Right.
So there's that. But Hess is unparalleled in his commitment to, being a tortured soul, not just by negative pain, or not negative, but by pain, suffering, but also by exquisite whispers of galactic glory and beauty. And Siddhartha, I think, was later, but anyway, he was during, he's a German guy during Hitler, and he spoke out against the war and became ostracized and like lost all his readership and divorce and all these intense things. And then had to go live in Switzerland. Anyway, he had a therapist who was a contemporary colleague of Jung. And the Jungian work that he did changed his life. And the books he wrote before and after this encounter are very different. And so the first one he wrote after, in my understanding, was Damien. And Damien I highly recommend. And then after Damien was Steppenwolf and Siddhartha, I think, then Narcissus and Goldmund, maybe Siddhartha in between there, etc. But his books tracking Siddhartha's journey, but like slowing down at each points of those, whether it's, now his protagonist is in his 50s and didn't have a successful marriage, and he's the Steppenwolf torn between the instincts that are connected to wanting to go out and drink at night and attracted to women, and then the spiritual ambitious sides that just want to kind of retreat from the worldly ways and get lost in poetry and this incredible, painful conjunctio of, alchemical tension. And long story short, in that, what I'm feeling is the laughter of the immortals. That's what I think we're trying to get to, is like, to me, life is a joke, but it's not a ha-ha, silly, lighthearted joke. It's a serious, painful, incredibly complex joke. But there is a giggle. There's like a cosmic giggle, and I can feel the presence of some being or it being like, do you get it?
Yeah.
But it's not a get it, like I got it, like you understand it, but it's like, do you get it?
Yeah. Like kind of, are you awake? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's when you were sharing all of that, and then a moment ago when you had stated that, a strong person creates good times. And, what occurred to me, and like to me encompasses everything that we've touched on today, is to not mistake that for one person being the strong person, one person being the weak person, but that we're all of those things all the time. Right. And that to me is like the edginess of the human experience, is like our ego wants to become identified and with whatever it is that we prefer in a given moment, or right, what we want to punish ourselves for, if that's our conditioning, right, or both, and all of it. But that all of it belongs. We're fooling ourselves if we think that we don't have some or all of those. And that's to me, like, the coming home to that and being humbled by it is the awake. Like, that is what the moments that feel like alive and awake, there's an intensity in that's pulsating through the veins that feels beyond the mind's, like the mind can't quite hold it, and that's just right.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. I don't see a lot of humor in spiritual worlds as much, at least. I don't mean to make sweeping statements per se, but Hillman's a funny guy. If you've read Hillman at all, like his book, We've Had 100 Years of Psychotherapy and the World is Getting Worse, and it's very grim in that way, but it's kind of interesting to hold the parallels. And he challenges therapy as a practice to return, or at least include, more creative, imaginal. There's some jokey quote, but whatever, where he's talking about most therapists, they can sense certain things, but their field is very limited in what they're sensing, and they're not even aware of like the essence of the chair they're sitting on, and that a cat knows better. He'll say snarky things like that. But yeah, the humor side, I don't know. There's just so much. And it goes, Molly reminds me a lot of Siddhartha's journey, because I've watched her from the time we've been together go. She's such a devout practitioner of the human experience. And similarly, once she's kind of mastered, or at least really understood and become powerful in the art of whether it's yoga or depth psychology, she gets this itch like Siddhartha did, like, okay, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, and I love that. And it's really painful, but it's really beautiful. And I guess that continues on. Okay, as we wind down, hope to have you on again, and wherever that's meant to be. Our dog has a groomer in an hour, which he's not excited about.
Oh.
Poor Juju. But I was thinking about, what was I thinking about? I was thinking about you as a poet, your poetic side, your creativity. I wrote down a list. I don't usually write it like this, but I wrote your poetry, your practice, your ever-evolving philosophy, your joy, your pain, your excitement. And that just came in a sequence that initially I thought I would stop at each one, which we can. But just wondering if anything comes up with that, as you and I and Molly, we're all parents suddenly, we're all adults suddenly, we're all, you run a business, Molly runs a business, we're all doing these things, just nurturing those sides, like what you're excited about. And I guess Hillman's idea too, that a lot of therapists can, and any of us, all of us, can get stifled by the roles that we're wearing, which I think is partially why I gravitated toward artist, whatever that means, because baked into the description is like, oh, this guy can he's just an artist. You know what I mean? Oh, you know him, he's an artist. But a lot of roles aren't necessarily like that yet, or on the surface perceived in such a way, but they're also very creative roles. So I was just curious about what you're excited about right now, what you're, how much room you have in your costume, which I think is an inner thing as well. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, two things. First, before I get back to that question, the humor piece in Buddhism, I want to say I love being surprised. Like with both of my kids, I didn't want to find out, what sex they were, because I'm like, this is such a cool surprise. We don't get
ultimate
like
surprise.
This.
Yeah, it's a big one.
and then being surprised by my intuition, right? Like that was that knew, right? Which
so
totally
you
surprised
knew.
me.
Interesting.
Yeah, wow. It was wild. But I love the surprise of things like a really serious teacher and then humor, right? And I'm like there's a teacher, I believe it was Sokne Rinpoche, but it's one of my favorite stories, and it's very short, but I saw a video of him teaching, and he was leading this really chill meditation, and he was like, it feels good. Like he was talking about body scan. He says, oh, it feels good. It feels bad. And he goes, who cares? And then he cracks up laughing. Yeah. And it was so there's such a profound teaching. And it was everyone was so in this meditative state, and you could feel the jump in the room.
I love that.
And then the laughter. And I think it is, the teachers, and even in religious sectors that I don't particularly am not drawn to as my practice, but admire and can appreciate. I think that it's when people bring a sense of play and humor, right? That allows, because then it's very serious, and it's not so serious.
Buddhism's a good example, actually, of all the kind of, in my understanding, practices. I feel like Buddhism definitely has a jovial, trickstery lightness to it.
Trickstery is the word. There's a
paradoxical
play. So there's that piece, and then you said something earlier about religion kind of feeling like a certain way, and that then there's the life practice, right? And to me, where any formalized religion for me loses, where I kind of lose interest in it is in the dogma.
100%.
When it's whether it's a really devout Christian, or someone who's really into their Jewish tradition and the religious piece of that, whether it's Orthodox or Reform, but when I really see them living it through how they show up to life, it is beautiful, like Muslim, like whatever it is, Wiccan, like it's beautiful.
It really is.
For me, the moment it becomes about like efforting to fit into the words, there's a disconnect that then just kind of I like it's a felt sense. It's not a dislike, it's not a turning away, but it's a felt sense of like, oh, this doesn't feel in flow right now. So I just wanted to circle back to that because it felt it felt alive.
Great distinction. Beautiful distinction.
And
so please.
Well, and then just to say the poetry piece and what lights me up, I mean, that just so ranges. It can be like a game of Yahtzee with my kids, like, or just going for a walk. But also I love to write. And I found in parenthood to let go, like for me, and this is different for everyone, but I found that for me, letting go of having a structured time to write, which at one point in my life felt really good.
Yeah.
And now it's more of like, oh, this is moving through me. The journal's, in the other room. This is the room I have to be in. And yet it's flowing through and it needs to come out. So what does that look like right now? And allowing it to be a mystery and to be maybe it's turning on music and dancing. Maybe it's singing a goofy song. Maybe it's sitting down and looking at this person who's with me in the eyes and saying, this is just moving through me right now and I need to say it out loud. Or maybe it's stillness and quiet. And then there's times where I do write poetry or I'm writing this book right now that nobody might ever read, but it's coming through. And so that's what's happening. So I don't know, I'm kind of playing with flow right now in life in general. Yeah.
No, you're very alive. You're very alive. That's amazing. Let's see. So I think I've covered most of what I wanted to. I wanted to do the bibliomancy with Siddhartha. And then maybe roll the dice one final time for a triptych. All right, Hess. We want to talk to you. We want you to talk to us, if you will, please. Sadly, Siddhartha looked into his friendly face, in the many wrinkles of which unchanging serenity dwelt. But can I part with him? He asked softly, feeling ashamed. Give me more time, dear friend. Look, I am fighting for him. I am courting his heart. I shall capture it with love and with friendly patience. Some day the river will speak to him too. He too has a vocation. Vasudeva's smile grew warmer, blossoming out. Oh yes, he too has a vocation. He too partakes of eternal life. But do we know, you and I, where his vocation lies? To what path, to what deeds, to what sorrows his call will lead him? His suffering will not be small, for his heart is prideful and hard. People of that sort must suffer greatly, go far astray, do much injustice, burden themselves with much sin. Tell me, dear friend, are you not bringing up your son? Do you put no pressure on him? Do you not hit him? Do you not punish him? No, Vasudeva, I do none of those things. I knew it. You put no pressure on him. You do not hit him. You give him no orders because you know that softness is stronger than hardness. Water is stronger than rock. Love is stronger than physical force. Very good, I applaud you. But is it not a mistake on your part to believe that you are not putting pressure on him or punishing him? Are you not tying him hand and foot with your love? Are you not daily shaming him and making things even harder for him with your kindness and patience? Are you not compelling him, proud and spoiled boy that he is, to live in a hut with 2 old plantain eaters, for whom even rice is a delicacy, whose thoughts cannot be his, whose hearts are old and settled and move at a different pace from his? Does not all that constitute compulsion and punishment for him? Taken aback, Siddhartha looked down at the ground. Quietly he asked, what do you think I should do? What do you think I should do? What do you, that has just asked you that question.
Yeah.
What do you think Siddhartha should do? Jodi right now.
Oh man, I was just so moved by all of it.
Me too.
And it's like, I guess what's coming up is one of my favorite parts of Zen practice is the idea of it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And so it's, I don't, and I think we make the mistake of believing that there is somebody outside of us that has an answer that we don't have.
Beautiful.
And it reinforces our deficiency instead of resting in the sufficiency of life as it unfolds and holding ourselves accountable for the how and the way that we're meeting each moment.
And it makes me think of that idea that our children chose us, so the way that we help them, nourish them, and the way that we harm them, I guess, or mess them up is all part of the divine intention of their souls and our souls. And I feel that as well. All right, last roll, and I appreciate your time so much. Juju's like, no, keep talking. He doesn't want to go to the groomer, obviously, but
Sorry,
let's see.
Juju.
Sorry, Juju. We got to do it. Juju has a quote in this book that just says harumph, which is one of my favorite. That feels very Buddhist.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Last, before I roll the dice.
Yeah.
Because of the work you do in your practice, you may have heard the story, but a teacher, maybe Buddhist, is with his student who's been with him for many, many decades. And the student is basically asking his master, what's at the center of it all? Like, I've learned everything you've taught me, but I still don't get, like, what is the thing? What's the point? And the master keeps telling him, you're not ready to know that. But the student is persistent. And finally, the master says, okay, you're not, but I'll tell you this, the truth at the center of it all is that you don't exist. So I'll leave that hanging. I'm still pondering that, but I think I have a vague impression of that, and I like it. Or Ram Dass saying the game is not about becoming somebody, it's about becoming nobody.
Maybe next time we talk, we can pick up there because yeah.
Cool. Becoming nobody.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. 1, 2, 5. We've been staying in the ones this time. The beginning of the book. Oh, it's pretty great. This is my dad's friend, Candace Leinhart, who was, I believe, I might be mistaken, but a kahuna, which is Hawaiian shaman. You cannot teach anyone the dance. You can only dance next to them until they catch the rhythm.
Oh, that's wisdom. Beautiful.
Yeah. And that's what you and Molly do, I think, in a lot of ways, just dancing next to people.
I feel grateful that I've gotten to dance next to her for so long and alongside you too.
I know, vice versa. I'm so grateful to Molly for connecting us. Thank you for taking the time here to be in the flow. And I feel complete if there's anything else, but I'm in a blissful calm.
Yeah, me too. Just a lot of gratitude. Thank you.
Same.
This has
Thank
been
you so much.
Nourishing.
Hiss of old kettle kept the china in the cabinet, gripped the cold metal for the final time, adamant dust just won't settle, so it's time to uninhabit this skeletal cadaver, unintelligible chatter through these paper thin walls, child's laughter a catalyst, second guessing how the notepad reflects happiness, crossing out dear you, sorry but I tried, it's probably for the best, I'm tired of being tired and I don't want to be an anchor, a canoe not cut out to be a banker, hence the shoebox's emptiness, slipping in and out of mood waves, questioning the whole project, hid on the duvet, don't wake me, don't make me too late. I'm old, baby, thinning like Samson. I can't lift the load lately. Whose opinion's been dripping through my arteries? Tired of my voice and the thought of these thoughts. Fear harmonies. Hard to sleep without the pharmacy's assistance. Artificial tears too numb to weak distance. Listless. Grocery lists and endless dishes. Think I got the bends again from ambitions. I keep telling myself I reach cell on the shelf. With each shell that I melt, the heat tells me I'm selfish. Deceit seldomly helps repeat relevant yelps, the dream somebody else's. On the verge of not recording this, plugging in the mic feels pointless when the quarter inch transforms into a serpent and I sort of flinch, not even strong enough to reach the chorus. This time, what are the kids buying? Hits great, this'll be bait for haunted fish lines. Caught my damn shadow trying to pick my pocket shit. What you want lint? I'll turn them inside out. You can have it as I limp by. The yawning abyss becomes a riptide. Too hard to resist, I let the shit slide.
Exactly. Just, right now.